It's really fun to see the chat function. I'm glad people are using that to say hello, welcome. So glad to have people joining us with their tea and coffee and their breakfast. Thank you so much for being here. All right, I think we're going to get started. Good morning. I'm Nicole Rahm. I'm Executive Director at Climate Generation. I want to thank you again for joining us for our 8th annual Donor Appreciation Breakfast. As we all navigate these uncertain times, we feel it's important to come together as a community to not only share how your gift has propelled our work, but also to remind us that we are all in this work together. It's our ability to adapt and be nimble, as well as to creatively reimagine programming that will allow us to ride the uncertainty. We hope you have a cup of tea or coffee and you're ready to join the Climate Generation team for a fun overview of some of our impactful moments this past year, as well as what we have coming up. We have a few trivia questions up our sleeve too, so be ready to engage. Lauren, our communications coordinator, will manage the slides this morning. Everyone is muted and you can see our presenters include our staff. If you have any questions, again, please use the chat function, the little bubble in the bottom center of your screen, to let us know if you are having issues or to ask questions. We will answer at the end. Again, feel free to enjoy your breakfast, drink your morning beverage as we talk. Just a friendly reminder to mute your phones and any other distractions. And we'll take questions and comments from all of our guests and attendees at the end. Again, thank you so much for joining us and supporting our work. Let's get started. We'd like to begin this morning by acknowledging that Minnesota is part of the traditional, ancestral, and contemporary lands of the Dakota and Anishinaabe people. We recognize the tremendous resilience of Indigenous communities and their powerful leadership for climate solutions. I'd like to acknowledge our phenomenal board of directors, 14 strong. We were excited to welcome Lisa Troutman to our board this past January, and I know Lisa's here today. In addition, I want to acknowledge our tremendous 30+ member advisory board. I saw Don Shelby and Frank Leopold and many others have joined us this morning, so thank you for your dedication and commitment. Next, I'd like to introduce our founder, Will Seager, who's not only an accomplished explorer, an educator, and eyewitness to climate change, but he's also survived years living remotely or in isolation, all on many solo expeditions. Thanks, Will.
Nicole, I have you went out on the sound.
I hear you now.
Okay, great. Yeah.
You're alive.
Sure. Yeah, sorry for the technical glitch here. I'm up in Neely, of course, and I want to thank everybody for joining us this morning. And yeah, wow, what a last couple of weeks here. We were, living our hopes and dreams and prospering in the great economy, and now we're all locked down on a Zoom. I wanted to talk about staying in rhythm in isolation, since I've lived, part of my life in isolation. On expeditions, I've waited out many storms in very confined spaces, and I'm an expert at killing time when it comes down to that. And I've also lived alone a lot in my cabin where I had access to books and that. But on staying in rhythm, it takes discipline to get a routine going. Probably the most important is getting a sleep routine. And it takes time. You're not going to get there right away, but you have to think of your body almost as a clock. And the sleep is everything. If you sleep good at night, you're refreshed in the morning, but you have to be careful of oversleeping. A tendency at first is to sleep a lot, which I think our body needs, but going to rhythm, going to bed at a certain time, and yes, using the alarm clock to get you up at a certain time. Watch napping during the day, because that sets your sleeping rhythm. But if you're able to get good dreams, you're already there. Meals on time, within reason. Really simple meals. Since you're resupplying at the store, and when you come back with your resupply cash, if you want something extra, you don't have it. So it's a good time to maybe eliminate some of the sugar and other types of things from your diet. Excuse me. Little rituals like tea in the afternoon, something to look forward to, something that kind of sets your natural clock. Um, on expeditions, believe it or not, we don't take a lot of coffee. Coffee has a tendency to set us off, but I know everybody drinks coffee or tea, but over caffeinating yourself can throw you off quite a bit. And and then during the day when you're inside, the stretching, yoga, something like that works out well. It's very important at least once a day to air out your rooms, your house. It might get a little cold, but that's good. The fresh air in your living quarters, and then excuse me, getting outside if you have access is very important. Long walks. Norm, Normally in the city, I walk every Sunday, usually 10 or 15 miles. So it's an opportunity to tour the neighborhoods, keeping your distance. And then lastly, it's the creativity of reading or anything else of your hobbies. And of course, watch your news. I mean, start rationing your news. The news is very depressing, and you have to meter that out. I want to conclude here by saying that Climate Generation is a very secure organization. As you know, that all of our 14 staff are working. We're financially sound, and we're prepared for the next months to come. With that, I'll turn it over to Nicole.
Thanks, Will, for your wonderful insight. We really appreciate it. And you can all tune into NPR. Will's going to be on Morning Edition with Kathy Werzer at some point next week, sharing his tips for surviving in isolation. Next, I'd like to introduce our entire team. You can see them in little screens, and Lauren's going to open us up so you can see all of us. And we're going to kick it off with Janet.
Hi, good morning. I'm Janet Brown. I'm the Associate Director, and my favorite breakfast beverage is Yorkshire Gold Black Tea. Welcome.
Hi, I'm Kristin Poppleton. I'm the Senior Director of Programs, and in my favorite mug, that's from Mr. Rogers, my favorite beverage is coffee in the morning, and more specifically, Blue Ox Peace Coffee, to give a little plug for our neighbors in the hall.
Good morning, I'm Robin Thorstensen. I'm the Senior Finance Manager, and my beverage of choice in the morning is a little OJ, and that moves on to mostly water in the afternoon.
Good morning, I'm Josna Harris. I'm the Senior Community Engagement Manager, and I'm drinking coffee this morning, but I hear you, Will, and I will try not to over-caffeinate.
Good morning, everyone. This is Sarah Goodspeed. I'm the Youth and Policy Manager here at Climate Gen, and I also am on black coffee. It keeps me going.
Morning, my name is Lindsay Kirkland. I'm the Climate Change Education Manager at Climate Generation, and my drink of choice is espresso.
Good morning, my name is Megan Van Loo. I'm the Senior Education Coordinator, and I have coffee.
Morning, my name is Lauren Boritsky Smith. I'm the Communications Coordinator, and my drink of choice is also coffee in the morning.
Morning, I'm Jason. I'm the Yamen Program Coordinator, and I'm drinking a medicinal tea with some nettles in it.
Hi, I'm Rebecca. I'm the Development Coordinator, Rebecca Noble, and I am drinking black coffee from Peace Coffee.
Hi everyone, I'm Kira. I am the Community Engagement Coordinator, and I also come bearing coffee this morning.
Hi everybody, I'm Akira Yano. I use he, him, his pronouns, and my position is the Youth Leadership Mentor, and my favorite drink is also coffee.
Thanks everyone for sharing your favorite beverage of choice. Maybe at the end of the program we'll hear from others, or you can share it in the chat function. Now we'd like to turn it to our program staff to give us updates, and we're going to kick it off with Lindsay, who recently joined us in January as our education manager.
Great, thanks, Nicole. Good morning, everyone. My name's Lindsay. Like Nicole said, I'm happy you could all be here today. To introduce you to climate change education, we have a trivia question for you. So Kristin, can you share our first poll? Great. I'll just read this out loud so everyone can participate. A study showed students participating in an environmental education course reported making decisions that reduced their CO2 emissions by 2.86 tons per year. What percent of the estimated yearly CO2 emissions of an average American does this equate to? Your options are 5, 7, 10, or 17%. So if you can just pick one, and we'll review the answers once we have everyone. Kristin, how many folks do we have?
We're at 64%. Come on, people, take a chance.
Do it. It's okay.
We'll give you 2 more seconds. We're almost there to guess. 40 people have responded out of 53. We're gonna end the poll now, knowing the time we have.
Thanks. Awesome. So most of you guessed between 7% and 10%, but it's actually 17%. So a year-long course in environmental education was able to change people's behaviors enough to account for 17% of the average American CO2 emissions, which I thought was really positive. So the climate education team at Climate Generation is working really hard to adapt our education programs to support teachers in their transition to online and distance learning. So we have so many programs to look forward to this year. I want to talk about some that we have going on. So in 2018, we created the Green Careers documentary, which is a 10-minute video that introduces students to green STEM careers as a solution to climate change. Lauren, can you play the video clip for us?
Lauren, you want to unmute it?
I think if you unmute yourself, Lauren, it might work.
It's unmuted here.
Sorry about that, friends. Let's try again.
We need green STEM jobs to help mitigate climate change. Climate change is something that affects all of us, regardless of race, class, creed, whatever it is. And that's the common thread. If we don't find a way to mitigate climate change, we're all going to be experiencing things like Puerto Rico did, where they don't have power. Things like what happened down in Texas, floods. So if we do our part as residents of the world and do our job in terms of mitigating CO2 carbon emissions by installing green infrastructure, finding better ways and more efficient ways to use power, finding better ways to produce power, we can actually have a really lasting effect on the world and leave it in a better place that we got it in.
Thanks, Lauren. So this year, Jenna Tots is leading an effort to expand that documentary and write a supporting curriculum. With this curriculum, students and teachers will explore careers that help draw down carbon emissions, and they'll learn about the specific scientific practices that professionals use in their careers. Next, I'd like to talk to you about an institute that we have coming up this year. With the New York City Department of Education, we will host a 3-day professional development workshop for educators in the New York City School District. At this institute, educators in civics and science will work together to learn about climate change impacts and solutions. At the end of this institute, teachers will have the opportunity to reach over 1 million students in their district. Megan's here today to tell you more about the institutes.
Great, thanks, Lindsay. Before I go into what we're doing in Minnesota, I wanted to have another poll. So it looks like it's up there. Trivia question, how many total educators have we trained in person at summer institutes since 2006? So your choices are 940, 720, 1650, or 2000.
And I'll give you all 2 more seconds. We're at 65% have voted so far. Let's get it up to 70%. Come on, folks. Get your thinking caps on. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and end the poll.
Ooh, a lot of people thought 1650. Close. It's actually a 940. So you guys think we're better than we are, so thanks. Yeah, so we've been doing summer institutes since 2006. So a couple summers we did 2. I think we're around 15 now. But last year in 2019, we were able to take the institute outside of Minnesota for the first time. So we went to Washington, D.C. and had our teachers from all over the country attend the 3-day conference, and it was focused on climate change in the humanities. So we historically have, really had people show up from the science classrooms, and while that's important, we're really seeing that we need to shift to more an interdisciplinary approach to climate change education. So we partnered with NOAA and the Lowell School and had it in DC, and 60% of the attendees taught science, while 40% taught humanities. So it was pretty close to half and half, which is was a goal that we had. We also held an all-day field trip going around kind of the tidal basin and the monuments there in DC using ArcGIS mapping software, which we find is a really good way to kind of get social studies teachers using the software to integrate climate change into their classrooms. And then from that institute, we had the teachers reaching over 6,000 students this year. Coming up this summer for 2020, the Summer Institute is back in Minnesota. We are going to hold it at Hamline University. Because of the time that we are in with COVID-19, we are keeping tabs on the news and feel confident that if we can't hold it in person, that we will do a virtual option. So we will hold it regardless, and we're really excited to be featuring, again, kind of teaching climate change as an interdisciplinary issue. And I think that's it. I will turn it over to the community engagement team.
Thanks, Megan. Good morning. Again, I am Josna Harris. And before we share a bit about our community engagement programs, we would like to invite you to participate in another poll. So our next poll question, Kristin, if you could launch that.
It's launched.
Oh, okay, great. So how many personal climate stories has Climate Generation published in local media, including radio and print media, over the past year? So your choices are 15, 28, 32, or 40.
Kristin, the poll is not visible.
I have it launched, so I'm not sure why it's not up there. Lauren, can you see a reason?
I actually just tried to launch as well, and I think for some reason it's not working.
Let's see if I try it one more time. Relaunch. Can people see it now?
Yeah.
Okay, there you go.
Great, okay. So again, how many personal climate stories has Climate Generation published in local media, including radio and print media, over the last year? So your options are 15, 28, 32, and 40. All right, so we have our results. It looks like 41% of people said 28, but it's actually 32. And we are really excited to continue to work with lots of different types of people to share perspectives and stories of climate change, because we know that when people do that, they feel a sense of empowerment and confidence in articulating their own experiences. And we know that those stories, when shared, have ripple effects out in the world. So we're excited to share a little bit about our community engagement programs. And in a time of social distancing and uncertainty in our world, we are reimagining how to really connect with people in meaningful ways. So in the months ahead, we are looking forward to several exciting community engagement virtual offerings that will encourage people to continue to come together as a community and to use our voices to inspire as well as demand bold action on climate change. So I'm going to turn it over to Kira, who will share some more about our programs.
Great, thanks, Josna. So to kick it off, we wanted to start by highlighting a really exciting program from this past fall. So as some of you may know, we held a concert called Band Together in November of 2019. And we had over 800 attendees at the concert with 10 different musical acts. And it was a really exciting time to come together to think about this intersection between music and art and climate change. So to kick it off, we're just going to start by playing a sizzle reel from our concert last fall.
We stand shoulder to shoulder. We stand side by side. We stand shoulder to shoulder around the fire.
When it comes to climate change, we cannot wait for government to act or legislation to force our hands and habits. We can't wait for our neighbors to start making changes to make them ourselves.
They went away, a second ago. I don't care what I'm really afraid. I want them to know.
We are all here today because as a human family, we recognize that there is a calling greater than any one of us individually. This is a moment in time that is bigger than political parties and divisions, that is bigger than just economic transition, that is bigger than fossil fuels.
I've always wanted to open a show by saying, I'm a tree hugger. There's something so humbling and so magical about nature.
I had a dream. I was cold in the rain. Yeah, I would wait for the sun to come up.
What I do know is that I don't want to be silent anymore, even though that is a very easy thing to do. But I want to learn about climate change myself. I want to learn what I can do, and I want to help connect people.
I was raised with the understanding that we shared the space and place where we lived with all sorts of other creatures and beings and energies.
This talking is a trap. Action in a maze. I'm sinking down, 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 down.
Connected by a chain, carved from one piece of bone. But in order to be clear, water must run. And we can save our Mother Earth.
Be the change, be the change you want to see.
I think that the first step to a better world is just to be able to imagine a better world.
Oh, we call home the only one we've ever known. Oh, we call home, drifting alone on this little new world we call home.
Thanks, Lauren. And so Band Together was a really awesome opportunity for us to be able to connect with artists and not only have them share their music on stage, but also share their own personal climate stories with the audience. And so jumping off from the Band Together concert, we wanted to keep this momentum and this action going. So we started a activation campaign that consists of a new podcast that we launched this winter, knowing that in really historical movements, music and spoken word have inspired cultural shifts and really brought people together. And so our podcast explores the role of music and storytelling in the climate movement, and is an opportunity for us to continue to connect with artists and help them not only think about how to talk about climate change themselves, but really understand how to talk about climate change in an intersectional way. And then in addition, so this is a photo of Laserbeak, who is our first guest from our first episode, and the second episode will be hopefully launching later this week, so stay tuned for that. And then in addition to the podcast, we also have a 3-webinar series that explores how to use your voice, your choice, and your vote to take action on climate change. So our first webinar on voice happened back in January and is available to watch on our YouTube page. And then our second webinar on how to use your personal choice will be coming up on May 14th. And another exciting project that we are diving into is called Eyewitness. So Eyewitness is a short chapbook. It's a collection of stories, poems, and artwork that speak to the diverse range and backgrounds of Minnesotans and their experiences of climate change. So back in the spring of last year, we put out a community call for submissions, and we're excited that we are actually about to start the printing process for the book, and it will be available for purchase starting on Earth Day this year, which is the 50th anniversary of Earth Day. All of the proceeds from this book will go directly to support climate generation programming to continue with our storytelling work, as well as all of our other programs. And I'll pass it back over to Josna.
Great. So we are really excited about the podcast and the book. We know that stories and music and poetry really bring people together, and that's really important in this time where people are social distancing and feeling maybe isolated in person. But we are very excited to offer a virtual climate storytelling slam on April 22nd, which is the 50th anniversary of Earth Day. So people will be able to connect from their homes to hear a lineup of a mix of ordinary and prominent people sharing in various ways on their reflections and experiences of climate change. So we're super invited to invite you to participate in that, and Kristin will put a link in the chat for you to stay tuned to that and learn more about how you can join us on Earth Day. And then our next slide, Lauren, if you want to cue that up, is that we are also, our community engagement programs continue to focus on the importance of normalizing conversations about climate change. We know that it is still not normal in many places to be talking about it. And so many of our programs utilize storytelling and skill building for people to feel more confident having meaningful conversations. Our Talk Climate program continues to be a model that is very successful in building some of those skills in real time for people to practice and share and build community. And we are excited to scale up Talk Climate in 2021 during the next legislative session to be able to engage people in these skills and take them to the Capitol for some opportunities to engage legislators. And then we are also continuing our work, our partnership with Three Rivers Park District on a climate conversation series to engage park visitors in their district. And this year we were proud that the series received a 2019 Environmental Innovation Award through Environmental Initiative. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to our youth team.
Thank you, Josna and Kira. It was amazing to remember all the amazing work that we've been doing in community. And I'm so proud to share more about an amazing year we've had supporting youth leaders all across Minnesota to really take leadership on climate action. And I'm going to invite our YAMN coordinator, Jason Rodney, to introduce a poll to engage you all in thinking about that and share more about the recent events we've been up to.
Yes, so you hopefully see the poll now. The question is, what is one bill that youth are advocating for in the Minnesota legislature this session? Solar on schools, Women of Color Opportunity Act, green affordable housing, or all of the above? Kristin, when you're ready, we can reveal the results. All right, most of you got it right. It's all of the above. So the leadership team of youth helping plan our Youth Climate Justice Summit this year, and our legislative campaign decided on a set of bills that they were interested in, and it covered a gamut of things in the broad climate justice movement. So you can go to the next slide. So this year we had about 200 people from 38 schools across Minnesota come together at the state capitol in late February to learn about climate action and speak with their legislators. It was a empowering day. There was a youth-led agenda where youth were leading the trainings on how to meet with your legislators, on how to engage in climate justice work. And they spoke with legislators, heard from the governor and lieutenant governor, and hosted a panel moderated by youth with the leaders of the climate caucuses from each chamber of Minnesota Congress. And we'll show you a little taste of it in this next video. You can sing along if you want.
Rooted as a tree, I am here, standing strong, in my rightful place,
What's next? So big gratitude to Shahad, the student at Roosevelt High School who led that song. And many of the students on those steps joined us for a call on Monday. We've been just trying to come together as a community during this COVID crisis time. We had a space just to support each other emotionally and do some listening. And they're going to have a movie night tomorrow, a virtual movie night. Excited for that. So I'll pass it to Sarah.
Thank you, Jason. And we were really excited also this year to launch the Yeah Fund. So this is a youth action fund to engage more students who aren't already necessarily in our network, but who are leading on climate action in their communities. And a lot of times students are limited by resources to be able to have the success that they envision. And so we were able to start the Yeah Fund to provide financial resources. And this is also led by a selection team of students from across the state, helping to send out funding every month to different student action projects in Minnesota. And so this was, the first picture was from our first funded action, was a Youth Climate Strike Retreat. So the Youth Climate Strikes in Minnesota have students across the state, and so they were finally able to bring together students for a whole weekend of learning, and our funding provided food so they could nourish their brains and bodies during that weekend. And then this photo is from another awarded project. This is a team in Worthington, their green team, which started last year with one of our core leaders in the center there. And our funding helped them travel to the Capitol to attend the summit, as well as getting their green team off the ground in Worthington. And so we're really excited to continue to share the Youth Action Fund and continue to support youth taking leadership in Minnesota on different climate change solutions in their communities. And we'll turn it next to our operations team.
Awesome, thanks, Sarah. Again, my name is Lauren, and I'm excited to dive into some annual report live numbers on how we did from the last year in both our development realm and the communications realm. And so just to give you a snapshot of who we're engaging with on a couple of our communications channels, we have about 11,000 email subscribers on 3 different, well, across our emails that we send, but then we have 3 newsletters that we send out. One, which is a monthly newsletter called the Climate Generation Gist. We also have the Teach Climate Tips newsletter for educators across the nation. And then just this past year, we launched the Talk Climate Digest, which is a quarterly email digest on tips to talk about climate change, featuring climate stories and more resources to feel more confident with how you talk about climate change. So I hope you're all subscribers. If not, I'm sure Kristin can share a link on how to subscribe, and we'd love to stay in contact with you that way. A snapshot into our social media. We were super excited to see our Instagram followers peak pretty much. We had a 58% increase last year, which is awesome. As we know, Instagram is growing in popularity, and several of our other channels are growing as well. So that's really exciting to see. You can find us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, and we have a YouTube channel as well. And then just some fun stats. So every year, Climate Generation staff tracks how many hours or how many miles we bike to the office rather than drive, as well as bus and walk. So we're really walking the talk with our mission. And this past year, we totaled 3,033 miles, which is pretty awesome. We definitely beat out the year before. It may have to do with having more staff, but let's just not talk about that. That's fine. And then also one of the really fun events that I've been able to work on this year with a couple of my development colleagues is our Brewing a Better Climate Trivia series, where we travel to different breweries across the state and host climate change trivia. It's a really fun way to engage with people about climate change, get a little bit of education out there, and just introduce people to our organization. And so across the several breweries that we went to, we had about 340 people attend. And then lastly, we're excited to share in the past year, we've had 484 donors. So thank you to all of you who are joining us today for your support. It's much appreciated, especially in a time like this where being connected is really number one as we are kind of navigating this weird time together. And I'm going to pass it over to Janet to talk more about our annual report numbers. But before that, I wanted to launch a poll about our organization's growth in the past, well, since we've been around. So Kristin, if you would like to launch the poll for folks. We are quizzing you on how much our organization has grown each year since we started. Your options are 5%, 8%, 10%, and 12%. Awesome. All right, so many of you said 10%. I'm happy to report it's actually 12%. So we beat you out there, but it's really exciting that our org is growing at such a rate year after year. Thanks for playing. I will pass it over to Janet.
Thank you, Lauren. Yeah, and clearly we couldn't do that growth without you. So we just wanted to say thank you for that. Some of you should have received our annual report in the last few days. It's a beautiful new piece that we did, which Lauren helped design, and I think it's, we would love to have you have a copy of it. You can view it online on your screen, which Kristin will put the in your chat. But you can also order a print copy by sending an email to info@climategen.org. We'd be happy to get a copy out to you as well. And Climate Generation really has continued to build on our solid foundation thanks to thoughtful fiscal leadership and strong support from donors like you. We really don't take that support lightly. We're incredibly grateful. And as we enter this time of uncertainty, that we have a solid organization with reserves and a creative team to help carry us forward. We hope we can continue to rely on your support in the months and the years ahead as we transition and heal our economy and help build resilient communities with equitable solutions to climate change. So we just want to say thank you. Thank you all for being here today. I'm going to turn it back to Nicole, who's going to open it up for some questions and other things.
Great. Thanks, Janet, for that overview of how we steward every donation we receive, and to all of our program staff for sharing what we've been up to and what's coming up. I want to just flag again, Kira mentioned this earlier, our webinar series and podcast. You can find both of those at the bandtogethermn.org website. The Choice webinar is coming up on May 14th. You can also tune into the Voice one, and the vote will be coming out later this year, closer to the election. And the podcast will also be available on bandtogethermn.org. In addition to that, we want to make sure you mark your calendars today to come back and join us here online on April 22nd, a Wednesday, from 11 to 12:30. We're going to be bringing back music and writers and storytellers for a really wonderful program to celebrate Earth Day and the launch of Eyewitness, with so much more to come around the Eyewitness book project, and we can't wait to engage you with all we have in store. You'll see the social media links there, ways to stay involved, and I just want to remind you that we're going to open it for questions, but I do hope you'll stick around. We've got a closing video after questions, and with that, Kristin's going to be monitoring the chat function, and we will have appropriate staff that can answer your questions.
So if you have any questions for us, feel free to write them in the chat box. I'm checking it out.
Questions or comments or kudos, we'll take it all.
I think everyone's dumbfounded by the love. Ben Pastor says, great job, everyone. Carolyn Sampson, thank you all. I won't read everyone's comments. There's a lot of thank yous coming through and nice work.
I see Carolyn asked, what can we do to support the work during this odd time? Well, you can always support us financially. You can volunteer and get engaged in future programming that we'll have in person later this year in 2021. You can share our social media and our programming with others in your network. I don't know if anyone else on the team wants to add other ideas that I've missed.
Yes, and a couple of folks had asked if we'll be sharing the links that I was sharing throughout it, and we can make sure that that's in the follow-up email, right, Lauren, to folks who join?
Yep.
We'll share all those links. Yep.
Kristin, I also see a question in the Q&A in addition to the chat.
Oh, whoops. Someone wants to know about Will's latest adventure.
Will, do you want to answer that?
Do you have any latest adventures? You're muted, Will.
Okay. Yeah, unfortunately, the latest adventure here has been closed up like everything else, so the borders are closed. So I'll be in Ely here until the we get some progress on the virus. So we're homebound, everybody.
Thanks, Will. I see.
And actually, to connect with that, Chuck Dayton is asking if there's a parallel between the virus and climate change.
I would say I could probably answer that. I think I don't think there is a parallel. There could be maybe, but there is a parallel though by the disruption that we have now is nothing compared to the disruptions we're going to have if we don't act serious. I think we can take a lot of examples of our lockdown situation of living and being satisfied with a lot less, being creative in this type of space. Because when things are back to normal again, the climate change is not going to go away. And they're saying we have less, we've been saying this for years, less than 10 years. Well, it's a lot less than that. But, so we really have to hopefully take what we've learned from the virus here as a community. I think it's really going to build the global community and within our own country. and then start taking a different look here at climate change. It's the only thing that's going to do it. If we need this type of an effort that we have now to solve this the situation, and also to prosper in the future and to keep the economy strong.
I see a question. I'm going to answer two other ones. I see a question about how many teacher scholarships are available for the upcoming institute. We have over 50 scholarships available, and we've been providing over 75% of our attendees have received scholarships. I don't know, Megan, if you want to add anything on that, since you're the one that reviews all of the wonderful teacher applicants.
Yeah, no, it is, it's amazing to just take that barrier of funding away from teachers. We find that they're able to say, yes, I can attend the institutes when the registration is waived. So yeah, majority, I think 75% have received it. So that's great.
I see more questions about the connection to the virus and climate change, and I'll just share. Don Shelby wrote, climate change connection to COVID is paralleled by deforestation moving virus through carrying bats closer to urban areas. Bats transmit SARS and MERS through intermediaries jumping from bats to humans. I don't know if any staff want to respond anymore to the connection.
We've been talking a little bit about it just in K-12 as we prepare. We have actually a webinar here in 2 hours for teachers and how to make sure that we're educated in how we're responding to those sorts of questions, because there's been a number of articles out on just how greenhouse gas emissions have gone down the last, couple weeks, months that this has been happening, and to be really careful about applauding ourselves for that, because those emissions are going down at the expense of lives and often the folks that don't have as many resources as well as everyone. So we have to be really careful about that, and also knowing that those emissions are not necessarily something that's going to continue. And also being really careful about and monitoring, and this is a challenge to everyone here, to how we're rebounding from this and the stimulus packages that are going through, and where that money is actually ending up and what it's actually stimulating. The opportunity is here right now to rethink maybe some Green New Deals or things that actually put jobs for everyone out there. So those are two, I think, important connections to think about too. And then finally, we appreciated a blog this week that came out just about how we often talk about how individual actions are, we devalue them oftentimes now with climate change, focusing more on collective, which we know is really important, but seeing how actually when something like what we're all in right now, we're all influencing each other's behavior, and how individual actions actually can be really momentous when people come together and really influence each other. And behavior change is sort of rapid. So the value of actually individual action as well. So a couple of thoughts, not necessarily the connection scientifically, but more from like a social science lens of how we're responding to this.
I could add one thing. We hosted a virtual hangout with educators and government organizations last night, and we touched on this subject a little bit, and some ideas that came out were the how people relate to their environment, and maybe capitalism isn't always the most community-driven way to deal with these issues, and that thinking about how to be caring and supportive and community-based and grounded in your individual action is a really positive way to think about how you can contribute to either climate change or our response to COVID-19. And people were empowered by that idea and sense of community that can come out of this.
Thanks for that question. I think that's really salient right now. I see Lindsay Schiffman has asked about Will's advice about surviving in this period of social distancing, and that it's prescient and powerful and authentic. Thanks again, Will. I agree. Will first shared this advice with me on a walk we had before he went to Ely. And I said, this is really powerful. We have to share your perspective with more people. And as I mentioned earlier, Will is going to be on NPR with Kathy Werzer sharing some of those tips. He's interviewing with her this week, and we'll find out when it airs, and we'll share that. And we'll look at writing an op-ed and pitching that to the paper as well. I think it is something that is a broader message that should be shared.
Janet, Margaret has a question that I think you would be good at answering. She was asking, is it better for donors to support the organization overall, or is there a specific program activity we should support?
That's a great question. I think if you give us the support, we'll figure out where we need it. So I think as Nicole was mentioning earlier and Megan mentioned, that our Teach Climate Teachers Scholarship Fund has really been a powerful way that we can directly support our educators. But our new fund with our youth funding is also, it's just, I think that one of the things we had just recently is we were contacted by one of our corporate supporters, and they said, rather than doing a specific grant this year, we just would like to do this as general operating funds. And I will just tell you, for an organization, that's really powerful. It's really nice to be able to know that we can pivot quickly, and that we have the ability to use funding where we know we need it the most. And I think that that's one of the most powerful things about this organization, is that we not only have incredibly talented and creative people, but we also have the ability to pivot quickly and still know where we can be most useful and most powerful. So, so I don't think it needs to be restricted in any way, but I appreciate people, just their willingness to not only continue their support, but also to, you know, let your friends know. Because I think there's a lot of people who are still in financial, whatever sound footing we can have financially right now. But if they still have a job and they're still in a good place, that I know a lot of people are looking for places to donate. And it's, and certainly we understand relief organizations are important with that, but it's going to be organizations like ourselves that also need that support in the next months and years ahead. So thank you for that.
That's a great ending for us. Thank you all for joining us. We're going to close with a video and a final thank you. So please enjoy this inspiring video of the world we envision.
I close my eyes and envision the world where the air in my lungs is pure,
where the waters that give us life are clean for all,
where the sea levels are steady and the storms have calmed,
where the green and economy is putting green back into my school,
back into the whistling fields on our farms, back into my town,
where the signatures on bills and laws are composed of our youth,
workers, tribes, and those who've been oppressed. I see the world where our hands unite instead of fight,
where students can be inside classrooms instead of protesting outside of them.
The world where my neighborhood is thriving, where the prairie is thriving, the island people are thriving.
I open my eyes and set to create that world.
In business, elevating the sustainability and unleashing the possibilities,
cutting the pollution and putting growth in climate solutions, creating community with UN negotiations and a cross-country teacher collaboration.
We're friends, organize, go on strike, governize, innovate, disrupt, and go to school.
Where coworkers have honest conversations, to grieve and admit the severity of the climate crisis.
We envision a world where ice caps are not melting,
where climate change education is normalized in the classroom,
where people of color and people on the front lines of the climate movement are heard,
where the representatives of the offending class are voted out of office.
We envision a world where we have 100% renewable energy,
where animals are happy and healthy,
where youth are empowered to act on climate change.
We envision a world where we are thriving in an equitable and resilient future.
We are the climate generation.
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 We are the climate
generation.
Generation.
We are the climate generation.
I'm going to invite all the staff to unmute themselves so we can all say thank you.
Thank you. Virtual hug.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Be well.